The insurance settlement barely covered Tom's funeral expenses and 3 months of his medical bills. After 41 years of marriage, I found myself sitting alone in our house in Southeast Portland, staring at a stack of collection notices and wondering how I'd managed to get here. The doctors had done everything they could, but a massive stroke doesn't negotiate. One moment we were planning our retirement, the next I was planning a funeral. I was 62 years old with a mortgage, property taxes I couldn't afford, and a resume that hadn't been updated since 1985. Nobody wants to hire a woman my age, not when they can get someone younger for the same money. But I had to try. I couldn't lose the house. It was all I had left of the life Tom and I had built together. That's how I ended up working the morning shift at Joe's Coffee Corner on Division Street. The owner, a kind man named Marcus, didn't seem to care that my last job was homemaker or that I'd never used an espresso machine in my life. He just needed someone reliable who could show up at 5 in the morning and handle the early crowd. The pay was $9 an hour plus tips. It wasn't much, but it was something. My first day, I burned myself twice on the steam wand and spilled a grande latte down the front of my apron. By day 3, I was getting the hang of it. By week 2, I knew most of the regulars by name and their usual orders. By the end of the first month, I'd almost convinced myself I could keep doing this, keep the house, keep going. That's when I first noticed the man sitting outside. He was older than me, maybe 70, with a weathered face and clothes that had seen better days. He sat on the bench across the street from the coffee shop,
wasn't just a story
right
I needed
outside
to
the
tell.
entrance to Powell's
It was
Book
a
City of
moment that
Books,
changed
the giant
everything for
bookstore
me.
that drew tourists from all over. He'd sit there for hours, a cardboard sign propped against his leg that read "Homeless." Anything helps, God bless. I watched him for 3 days before I did anything. On the 4th day, I made an extra bagel and poured a medium coffee into a to-go cup. During my break, I walked across the street. "Good morning," I said, offering him the cup and bag. "I thought you might like some breakfast." He looked up at me with startling blue eyes that seemed far too alert for someone in his position. For a moment, I thought he might refuse. Then his face softened. "That's very kind of you, ma'am. Thank you." His voice surprised me. It was educated, articulate, not what I'd expected. "You're welcome. I work across the street at Joe's. I see you out here every morning. I'm here most days," he said quietly, weather permitting. "Well, I'll see you tomorrow then." I started doing it every day. A coffee and a bagel, sometimes a muffin if we had extras. I couldn't afford much, but I could afford that. It was such a small thing, really. 5 minutes of my time and maybe $2 worth of food. But it made me feel a little less helpless in a world that had taken everything from me. I learned his name was Robert, but he preferred Bobby. He never asked for more than what I brought him. He always said thank you. Sometimes we'd talk for a few minutes during my break. He'd tell me about the books he was reading from the library, or comment on the weather, or ask how my day was going. Normal things. Human things. 6 weeks went by like this. I'd gotten 2 small raises at Joe's. I'd managed to negotiate a payment plan with the hospital. The house was still at risk, but I was holding on. Barely. Then, on a Tuesday morning in late September, everything changed. I was bringing Bobby his usual coffee and sesame bagel when I noticed he looked different, agitated. His eyes kept darting up and down the street, and his hands were shaking slightly. "Bobby, are you okay?" He took the coffee from me but didn't drink it. Instead, he leaned forward and lowered his voice. "Linda, I need to tell you something important. Don't react, just listen." My heart started pounding. "What's wrong?" "There's a man who's been watching you. His name is Trevor Mason. He's been in the coffee shop 3 times this week, always sitting where he can see you." I glanced back toward Joe's instinctively. I don't know anyone named Trevor. Blonde hair, expensive suit, drives a silver Lexus, he carries a leather portfolio and drinks Americanos. My stomach dropped. I did know who he meant. He'd been friendly, chatty, he'd complimented my service, asked about my life. I'd thought he was just a nice customer. "How do you know his name?" I asked. Bobby's jaw tightened. "Because I used to be a prosecutor, Linda. I sent men like Trevor Mason to prison for a living. I know a con artist when I see one." I stared at him. You were a prosecutor? "For 23 years. Multnomah County District Attorney's Office. Until 4 years ago, when I wasn't anymore. What happened? He shook his head. That's a long story, and we don't have time. Listen to me carefully. Trevor Mason specializes in estate fraud. He targets widows. He gains their trust, offers to help with paperwork, gets them to sign documents. By the time they realize what's happened, he's got liens on their property or power of attorney or both. That's insane. Why would anyone... He followed you home last Tuesday. I saw him. He knows where you live, Linda. The coffee cup in my hand felt suddenly cold. Are you sure? I'm sure. I've been watching him watch you. Bobby's voice dropped even lower. He's going to approach you soon with an offer. He'll say he's an estate consultant or a property advisor. He'll offer to help you refinance or consolidate your debts. He'll have documents that look official. Whatever you do, don't sign anything he gives you. Why are you telling me this? How do you even know about my situation? Because I listen. You've mentioned your late husband, the medical bills, the mortgage. You talk on your phone during breaks. I sit 20 feet away. Sound carries. He looked directly at me. And because someone showed me kindness when I had nothing, and I can't repay her, but I can pay it forward. I don't understand. You don't need to understand everything right now. Just promise me you won't sign any documents without showing them to a lawyer first. A real lawyer, not someone Trevor recommends. I can't afford a lawyer. Then bring them to me. I may not be able to practice anymore, but I can still read a contract. I must have looked skeptical, because Bobby pulled something from inside his worn jacket. It was a laminated card, faded but still legible.
Welcome back, everyone.
An Oregon
Today,
State Bar
I want to share a
Association
story
ID
about a
card from
moment
4
that
years ago.
completely changed
Robert
my
Charles
perspective.
Patterson, member in good standing. I don't practice anymore, he said quietly. But I'm not a liar. Before I could respond, he stood up abruptly. I have to go. Just remember what I told you. And Linda, be careful. He walked away, leaving me standing there with his coffee and bagel growing cold in my hands. I went back to work in a daze. Every time the door chimed, I looked up expecting to see Trevor Mason. I tried to remember our conversations. Had I told him too much? Had I given him information he could use against me? 3 days passed. Bobby didn't come back to his usual spot. I started to wonder if I'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe he was mentally ill. Maybe I'd been stupid to trust a homeless man with warnings about con artists. Then, on Friday afternoon, just as my shift was ending, Trevor Mason walked into Joe's. Linda! Just the person I wanted to see. He flashed a perfect white smile. Do you have a minute to chat? My mouth went dry. I'm actually just finishing up. This will only take a moment. I wanted to talk to you about something that might really help your situation. He knew about my situation. Bobby had been right. I'm sorry. I really need to get home. I'm an estate planning consultant, Trevor continued, as if I hadn't spoken. I specialize in helping people who are going through difficult transitions. I couldn't help but overhear some of your conversations, and I think I might be able to help you save your house. There it was, exactly what Bobby had predicted. That's very kind, I said carefully, but I'm not really interested. Just look at this. He pulled out his leather portfolio and extracted several official-looking documents. These are preliminary assessments based on the property records for your address. You're sitting on significant equity, but you're drowning in medical debt. I can help you restructure everything, consolidate your payments, and reduce your monthly obligations by nearly 40%. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. I'd need to think about it, I said. Of course. That's why I prepared these documents for you to review. He held out a thick envelope. Look them over this weekend. I've flagged all the places where you'd need to sign. We can meet Monday morning and finalize everything. You could have a check in your hand by Tuesday. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to refuse. But I thought about Bobby's words. Don't sign anything, but if he gives you documents, bring them to me. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll look at them. Trevor's smile widened. Excellent. I'll call you Monday morning. You're going to be so relieved, Linda. This is going to solve all your problems. He left, and I stood there clutching the envelope like it might explode. I didn't open it that night. Instead, the next morning, I went looking for Bobby. I checked his usual spot, walked around the block, even asked at Powell's if anyone had seen him. Nothing. On Sunday morning, I I tried again. This time, I found him 2 blocks away, sitting in the doorway of a closed furniture store. "Bobby!" He looked up, and I saw relief cross his face. "Linda, did he approach you?" "Friday. He gave me these." I held out the envelope. I didn't sign anything. "Good. Let me see." We sat on the concrete together while Bobby went through the documents page by page. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, flipping through the papers, pausing occasionally to study a particular clause. After 10 minutes, he looked up. "This is worse than I thought." "What do you mean?" "These aren't debt consolidation documents. This is a deed transfer. If you sign these, you'd be transferring full ownership of your house to a company called Pacific Northwest Property Trust. You'd become a renter in your own home, with an option to buy it back at a price that's been inflated by 30%. You'd lose everything." I felt sick. But it says debt consolidation right here. It's buried in the legal language. Most people don't read past the first page. By the time they realize what they've signed, it's too late. Bobby's voice was bitter. "I've seen this exact scam before. I prosecuted a case almost identical to this 6 years ago. So what do I do?" "You don't sign, obviously. But that's not enough. Trevor Mason has done this to other people. He's doing it to other people right now. He needs to be stopped." "How?" "If you're not a prosecutor anymore." "I'm not. But I know someone who is." He pulled out an ancient cell phone from his pocket. "Detective Maria Chen. She was my partner on the case I mentioned. She's with the Financial Crimes Unit now. If she's still willing to talk to me, why wouldn't she be?" Bobby looked away. "It's complicated." He made the call anyway. I could only hear his side of the conversation, but it was clear they knew each other well. There was warmth in his voice when he said her name, followed by a long pause where he must have been listening. "I know, Maria, I know. But this isn't about me. It's about stopping someone who's targeting vulnerable people. Yes, Trevor Mason, I have documents." "No, I'm not." "Yes, she's right here. Her name is Linda Morrison." He handed me the phone. A woman's voice, professional but not unkind, spoke. "Mrs. Morrison, this is Detective Chen. Bobby tells me you've been approached by Trevor Mason with documents you didn't sign. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "Can you come to the Central Precinct tomorrow morning?" "Bring the documents."
I never imagined it would be possible.
"I'd like to take a look."
But looking back
Of
now,
course.
it all feels
Should
so
I-
clear and meant to
Should
be.
Bobby come too?
I am so grateful.
There was a long pause. "If he wants to?" The next morning, Bobby and I took the bus downtown to the Justice Center. He was wearing the same worn clothes, but he'd shaved and combed his hair. He looked nervous. Detective Chen met us in the lobby. She was in her mid-40s, sharp-eyed, dressed in a gray blazer and slacks. When she saw Bobby, something flickered across her face. Pain, maybe, or regret. "Bobby, Maria." They stood there for a moment, the air thick with unspoken history. "Let's go upstairs," she said finally. In the conference room, Detective Chen examined the documents, while Bobby and I sat across from her. She took notes, made photocopies, occasionally asked me questions about my interactions with Trevor Mason. "This is solid," she said finally. "We've had reports about Mason before, but never enough to build a case. If we can get him on tape trying to close this deal, we can arrest him." "You want me to wear a wire?" I asked. "Not exactly. We want you to agree to meet him, as planned, but in a public place where we can have plainclothes officers nearby. If he proceeds with the signing, we'll have enough to charge him with attempted fraud, possibly identity theft and forgery depending on what else we find." "When?" "You said he's supposed to call you Monday morning. Tell him you're ready to sign. Suggest meeting at Joe's Coffee. Tell him it's where you feel comfortable. We'll set up surveillance." I looked at Bobby. He nodded. "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." Monday morning came too quickly. Trevor called at 9:30, just as he'd promised. I told him I'd reviewed the documents and was ready to move forward. Could we meet at Joe's around 11? He readily agreed. Detective Chen arrived at 10 with 2 other plainclothes officers. They sat at separate tables, looking like ordinary customers. Bobby stood across the street in his usual spot, visible through the window. Detective Chen had wanted him to stay away, but he'd refused. "I need to be there," was all he'd said. At 11:05, Trevor Mason walked in carrying his leather portfolio. He was all smiles. "Linda, you look great. Are you ready to start your new life?" "I am," I said, my voice only shaking a little. Thank you so much for helping me. That's what I'm here for. He sat down and pulled out the documents. I just need your signature on these highlighted lines, and then we'll notarize everything. You'll have your funds by Wednesday. He laid out a pen. I picked it up, my hand poised over the first signature line. Before I sign, I said slowly, reading from the script Detective Chen had given me, can you explain exactly what Pacific Northwest Property Trust is? I want to make sure I understand. Something flickered in Trevor's eyes. It's just the financial entity that manages the debt consolidation, standard procedure. But this document says I'm transferring ownership of my house to them. Is that normal? It's a formality, for legal purposes. You'll still live there. Nothing changes except your monthly payment goes down. But I wouldn't own my house anymore? Technically, he was starting to look annoyed. Linda, you said you reviewed these documents. Did you have questions? You should have called me over the weekend. I'm just trying to understand. You know what? Let me explain it in simpler terms. His friendly mask was slipping. You're about to lose your house anyway. The bank is going to foreclose. You'll have nothing. I'm offering you a way to keep living there and reduce your debt. Do you want to sign or not? Actually, Detective Chen said, standing up and pulling out her badge. She doesn't.
And so,
Trevor's
as the sun
face
set
went
on
white.
that distant horizon,
He grabbed the
I knew my
documents and
life
stood
would
up
never
fast,
be the same.
knocking his chair
It was a
back.
moment of pure,
Portland Police,
unadulterated clarity.
Financial Crimes Unit. Mr. Mason, you're under arrest for attempted fraud, identity theft, and forgery. The other two officers moved to flank him. You have the right to remain silent. Trevor bolted for the door. He didn't make it 3 steps before Bobby stepped inside and blocked his path. For a homeless man in his 70s, Bobby moved fast. Trevor tried to push past him, but Bobby grabbed his arm with surprising strength. I wouldn't, Bobby said quietly. Trust me, running makes it worse. The officers caught up and handcuffed Trevor while Detective Chen read him his rights. The whole coffee shop had gone silent, customers staring open-mouthed at the scene. Marcus, my boss, came out from behind the counter. Linda? What the hell is happening? It's okay, I managed to say. Everything's okay now. But my hands were shaking so hard I had to sit down. After Trevor was taken away, Detective Chen sat down across from me. You did great, Mrs. Morrison. Really. We got everything we needed on tape. He's going away for a long time. What happens now? We'll need a formal statement from you. And we'll be going through Trevor Mason's records. I suspect we're going to find a lot of other victims. You might have just helped us break open a much bigger case. I looked through the window at Bobby, who was back at his spot across the street. What about Bobby? I asked. Can you help him? Detective Chen followed my gaze. Her expression softened. Bobby doesn't want help. Not from me, anyway. Why not? What happened to him? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, 4 years ago, Bobby prosecuted what we thought was a slam-dunk case. Real estate fraud, similar to what Trevor was trying to pull on you. The defendant was a man named Lawrence Whitmore, who had connections to some very powerful people, lawyers, judges, politicians. What happened? The night before the verdict, evidence disappeared from the evidence room. Not just disappeared, replaced with falsified documents that made it look like Bobby had manufactured evidence. There was an investigation. Bobby was cleared eventually, but the case fell apart. Whitmore walked, and Bobby. She paused. Bobby had always been by the book. The accusation destroyed him. His wife left him. He started drinking. He lost his house fighting the legal bills. By the time he was officially exonerated, he'd lost everything. My God. He came to me asking for help getting his license reinstated. I told him he needed to get his life together first. That was 3 years ago. I haven't seen him since until today. Detective Chen's voice was rough. I should have done more. I should have. She stopped herself. He saved me, I said quietly. If he hadn't warned me, I know. Detective Chen stood up. Look, I need to go process all this. But Mrs. Morrison? Don't lose touch with Bobby. He's been through hell. But he's still one of the best prosecutors I've ever known. And clearly still one of the best people. Over the next few weeks, things happened fast. Trevor Mason was denied bail. Detective Chen's investigation uncovered 17 other victims of his scheme, including 3 elderly women who'd already lost their homes. The district attorney's office was building a massive case. I gave my statement, appeared before a grand jury, and cooperated with every request. It was exhausting, but I did it. For myself, and for Bobby, and for all the other people Trevor Mason had hurt. Bobby kept coming to Joe's every morning. I kept bringing him coffee and breakfast, but now we talked longer, about more than just the weather. He told me about his years as a prosecutor, about the cases he'd won and the ones that still haunted him, about his ex-wife who'd remarried and moved to Seattle, about the moment he'd realized he had nothing left and nowhere to go. "Why didn't you leave Portland?" I asked him one morning. "Start over somewhere else?" "And do what? Be homeless in a different city?" He smiled sadly. "At least here, I knew where the good libraries were, and Powell's let me sit and read for hours without bothering me." "What about getting your license back?" Detective Chen said. "Maria thinks it's that simple. Just file some paperwork, prove I'm sober, pass the character review, but it's not that simple. The people who destroyed me the first time are still in power. Whitmore still has connections. Even if I got my license back, who would hire me?" "You could testify at Trevor's trial," I said. "Show people what you can still do." "I'm not a prosecutor anymore, Linda. I'm a homeless man who helped catch one small-time con artist. That doesn't change anything. But I thought it did change things, and apparently, so did Detective Chen. 2 weeks later, she came to find me at Joe's. "I talked to the DA," she said without preamble. "We want Bobby to consult on the Trevor Mason case. Officially, he'd be paid for his time, and it would give him something concrete to show the Bar Association when he reapplies. Does Bobby know?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. He trusts you. I thought maybe you could convince him." So I did. It took 3 days of arguing, but eventually Bobby agreed to meet with the district attorney. I went with him. He'd gotten a haircut and was wearing a suit someone had donated to a shelter. It was too big on him, but he looked more like himself. Like Robert Patterson, prosecutor instead of Bobby, the homeless man on Division Street. The meeting went well, better than well. The assistant DA working the case was young and eager, and she'd actually read about Bobby's old cases. "Mr. Patterson, your work on the Whitmore case was brilliant, even if the verdict didn't go our way. I wrote a paper about it in law school. If we can get half that caliber of work on Mason, we'll put him away for 20 years. Bobby came out of that meeting looking 10 years younger. The trial was scheduled for March, 3 months away. Bobby spent that time working with the DA's office, reviewing evidence, coaching witnesses, helping build the case. They paid him as a consultant, minimum wage, but it was something. It was enough. He found a room at a boarding house in Southeast. Nothing fancy, but it was warm and dry and his. He started attending AA meetings. He applied for food stamps, got connected with a social worker, began the long process of rebuilding his life. I watched him transform. Not back into who he'd been, that person was gone, but into someone new, someone who'd survived hell and come out the other side stronger. The trial lasted 2 weeks. I attended every day I could get off work. Bobby sat at the prosecution table in a properly fitting suit provided by the DA's office. He didn't address the jury, but I watched him pass notes to the assistant DA, point out inconsistencies in the defense's arguments, and coach witnesses during breaks. When Trevor Mason was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 22 years, Bobby wept. Afterward, in the courthouse hallway, Detective Chen found us. "I talked to the Bar Association," she told Bobby. "I explained your role in this case. I explained everything you've done to rebuild your life. They're expediting your reinstatement hearing." Bobby looked at her, his eyes bright with tears. "Maria, don't thank me. You did this. You never gave up, even when you had every reason to." She paused. "I'm sorry I didn't do more 4 years ago. I should have fought harder for you. You didn't know. I should have known you'd never fabricate evidence. I should have trusted you." She took a breath. "If you get your license back, I want you to consider coming back to the DA's office. We need prosecutors like you." 6 months later, Robert Patterson was officially reinstated to the Oregon State Bar. 3 months after that, he started working for the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office, specializing in financial crimes against the elderly. As for me, I'm still working at Joe's Coffee. But the house is paid off now. Trevor Mason's conviction included restitution for his victims, and I was one of them. I don't have to work anymore, but I like it. I like the routine, the regulars, the feeling of being part of the community. Bobby still comes in every morning, but now he pays for his coffee and bagel, and we sit together during my break, two friends who found each other in the darkest moment of our lives. Sometimes I think about how close I came to signing those documents. How different everything would be if Bobby hadn't been sitting on that bench, watching, caring enough to warn me. "You saved my life," I told him once. He shook his head. "You saved mine first. The coffee and bagel, the conversation, being treated like a human being when I felt like nothing that saved me, Linda. Everything else just followed from that. I don't know if I believe in destiny or fate or divine intervention, but I believe in kindness. I believe in the power of small gestures, of seeing people who are invisible to everyone else, of refusing to walk past someone in need. Because you never know. That homeless person on the corner, the one everyone ignores, they might be a prosecutor who's lost everything, a doctor, a teacher, a veteran, a human being with skills and knowledge and a story. They might be the person who saves your life. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, saving them saves you right back."